is Mistress Helewyse, and I've been a laurel now for 20 years. It's insane. And people think cooking laurels cook food. And I will tell you that most cooking laurels, when I was made a laurel 20 years ago, I had cooked 2 feasts. I'd done a lot of research and I'd done a lot of teaching, but I really took a couple of feasts. So my personal take on feast, and your take might be different, is as a feast cook, your job is to take that person and immerse them.
Over here.
Yeah, right? Is to take that person and immerse them and take them to a place and to a time with your food and provide tasty food. The two are not mutually exclusive, right? So I'm going to start with a very simple question. What was the last feast you ate?
My own.
Okay. And what was your feast?
That one was a pilgrimage from Northern Europe to the Holy Land.
And what was the time period?
The Crusades, about the 1100s.
Okay, so it was just food from the 1100s?
Mm-hmm.
And it was that route.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else here been on a feast recently? No?
Better
Do
Wars.
you want me to actually remember?
Yeah, when did
Better Wars, I think, is
We were at Ragnarok.
Ragnarok.
weren't we? They had a feast.
did you eat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Ragnarok would have been more recent.
Yeah.
Right. Did it transport you?
Yeah, food was good.
Food was good.
Yeah.
Was it historical?
Actually, yeah, the Ragnarok piece was really good.
Was it historical?
I don't remember.
I believe it was.
No. It was not.
Okay.
Food is such, come on in. Food is such an ephemeral thing.
There's room for another chair on this side, as long as we don't block the camera. So if you want to pull a chair like here.
Oh, you can sit over there, it's fine. She's gonna have to edit this. And pass a handout and the sign-in sheet right there, can you? So, food is ephemeral. When you cook a feast, once you're eaten, once you've eaten your feast, what's the memory?
The taste.
The taste, the flavor. How do the people eating know that what you did has any basis in period food whatsoever?
They really don't.
They
They're taking your word for it.
Really don't. Right, unless you provide a table booklet. Unless you are actually taking that opportunity to reach out to them.
There's room to pull another chair here, as long as we don't block the camera the whole time.
Sure.
Or I can move over a little bit more. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of feasts miss, that opportunity. Your opportunity to educate, to engage your audience, to bring them into your vision with you. That's something that I see a lot of feast cooks missing. We might have a menu on the table, but where's the context? Where's the research? Where's my original recipe? Where is your option, your ability to say to that person, hey, this food we're cooking is something that I care deeply about. I care about this time. I care about this place. And I want you to join me on this trip to this place, this time. I think probably the feast that I remember that did this the absolute best was the coronation of Felix and Madalena II, which was a Turkish feast. Several of the tables had actually their legs folded. There was cushions. They were sitting on the ground. They were eating it. Everything was set out in order. Everything was highly decorated. They had put, things on the walls to provide like a beautiful backdrop. Everything from the service to drinks to the menu to the hall itself was part of this ambiance. And it was fantastic. You were transported. And I think it's so easy for us to forget that if you're a cooking, if you're a cooking or you want aspire to be a cooking or you want to actually do that for somebody, transportation is a thing. Getting you there starts months earlier. And I would also say the good quality research can be the difference between appropriation and appreciation. That on the back page, we have a couple of one of these is it's a menu from another kingdom of a Chinese meal. The only problem with this Chinese meal is the fact that they serve chicken chow mein, which is an American Chinese restaurant dish, and beef and Chinese broccoli with rice. Except they didn't use Chinese broccoli. They used broccolini, which is nothing like Chinese broccoli, because Chinese broccoli is a big leafy vegetable. But it bore no relation, like, that was offensive, right? It's like, I'm doing this pure Chinese meal that I did my research at China Buffet, right? That's where we can, like, make that disconnect. We have had people do New World feasts, and they start by going to travelogues. Or they start, the other example here, this was the feast that was done, I just blanked on her name, by, it was done at Middlemarch's 12th night last year, the Ethiopian feast. And they did a lot of research to try and figure out what would have been served, what could have been served. So I think that we have, my personal opinion, and this is my soapbox, and I can stand on it, it's fine, right, is that if we're going to do a feast, then it behooves us to do the best job we can. Not just be like, well, everybody likes Dickie's toasted cheese, so I'm going to serve that, and everybody likes this one dish I do, so I'm going to serve this meat potato stew. Because now you're making dinner. And dinner could go to hell. I don't like dinner. So at the end of my diatribe, you'll be able to explain why we should do a research first approach. So if you want, you'll see the handout has a URL that will get you to the online version of this PowerPoint. The advantage of that is that all of the hyperlinks are there. So, what is your period of interest?
1250s Russia?
1250s Russia. Do they have any written cookbooks from 1250s Russia? No. Right. How do we start in 1250s Russia?
Well, we have some recorded notes.
We have recorded notes, so we have travelogues.
We have, well, more like shopping lists.
Ooh, interesting.
So we have some information about salted fish and lemon.
Okay.
And not so much about menus or actual recipes.
Okay. Do we have any archaeological digs?
Probably. I need to do more research in that area.
Right. So, there's always ways. Anybody got European persona? What era?
Late 16th century England and France.
Baby, I can give you an entire zip drive full of 16th
yeah.
century printed cookbooks, right? Mostly because I stole them all off. Oh, never mind. I acquired them when I had access to eBall, early English books online many years ago. So I have literally everything that was printed. That makes life easy when we can just go to a cookbook and pull recipes. My personal cooking place is 16th century Italy. We have lots of printed books. We have travelogues. We have cookbooks. We have dietary books. We can build a picture of the culture. There's a whole book that's called Della Scalco, of the butler. And it is literally like everybody's job in the kitchen and what they need to do and how they need to lay the tables, and huge amounts of information available. Your interest would be?
16th century Ottoman.
Fortunately, we have started to get quite a lot of cookbooks being translated from Persian and Turkish into English.
There weren't a lot though, because especially in the palaces, recipes were a carefully guarded secret by
Right.
the master chef. So
But
they
you
were
sometimes have
And you
pictures
get-
and you
yeah.
have reports. And if you have some,
And you also get purchase history, like, okay, for, so have that we have wedding, this month of this purchase for the making of that.
right, so we have some way to get to the information. And you are?
Mongolian Empire, but I also believe that every autocrat should get a piece appropriate to their event piece.
Right?
So I
Okay.
look at medieval cookery, that kind of awful lot.
Right. You know, but when you did a Mongolian feast, what did you source?
There is one cookbook, Soup for the Khan, also the travel logs from the European travelers, and there's an awful lot of history books that we get through.
A lot of history books. And you, what sort of feast would you do if you had an opportunity?
I don't have a particular area.
Okay.
Or telling you, like, transit time.
Ready for time? Depending on when, right? Up until, as long as you're up after the 14th century, it's books. Right? And you?
I'm very late Italy,
Oh.
but I am interested in desserts and sweets throughout history and
Okay.
era.
Well, so if you late 16th century Italy, then you want my website, which I think I put on here.
You want to talk about it?
Yes,
You-
I would.
It's right here at the bottom. Right.
She has all the things for you.
And you?
I do. I rarely come to 2 events in a row with the same persona.
Okay.
So besides 16th century Ottoman, my sort of passion project is pre-contact Mesoamerica,
Ooh, that's a fun one.
mostly Mexica, but also
Right.
some of the northern Central America as well. And then 10th century China.
Well, that would be a fun one. So,
There's some 10th century China stuff.
yeah, I will say, like, I'm not going to read my PowerPoint to you because there's nothing worse than death by PowerPoint. Right? Because, I'm sorry, I teach for a living and that's just like my nightmare fuel. Going to a class where somebody reads the handout to me. So if you want to do this, so for like 14th and upward European food, there's actually a lot of places online that you can find online books because we've had a lot of digitization happening. So Google Books in and of itself is an astounding resource that has a ridiculous amount of scanned books. Now you have to figure out how to find them, which is where search terminology comes in handy. But there's an awful lot of things that are scanned on Google Books. But it is very Eurocentric, right? Saying that though, I haven't actually tried to search in other languages. But it is one vast, repository of book knowledge. So I have I have a link to my library in there. That is literally every pre-16th century cookbook, food-related, agricultural journal that was printed, that was scanned in Google Books the last time I went looking for them, right? And agricultural books can sometimes give you things that you can't find in your cookbook. There's very few recipes for bread, but while reading a medical book, I actually managed to find a recipe for kind of like a steak. And it's basically bread with not too much, nothing like there. But it's like a beautiful and what she did was all the work. So she went through all the wisdom, right? Oh, for cold you eat this, and so that helps you get types of food. She looked at digs to see what sort of animals were being eaten and what age they were being eaten. She looked at all of the ways, like you can tell how an animal's butchered by looking at the cut marks on the bones. You can tell how old it is. If it's an old animal, they're going to be stewing. They're not going to be cooking young. And so you can extract a vast amount of information from those sorts of things. But she did all that work for you. a lot of cultures, we simply don't have that word. So one of the things I put in there was a link for Google Scholar, which is a lot of people have never heard of. And it is by far my favorite Google search. Scholar.google.com. It searches academic literature. And I have found so much information through Google Scholar. Because it links to all those archaeological journals, right? The trick is your search terms. I think that is one of the hardest things for most people to get, is how do I put my searches? And I think I get a little bit of advantage because I was a researcher in real life, and I kind of do good searches. But you always want, as your first term, the thing you're most interested in. So let's say you're into, what was it again?
1250s Russia.
1250s Russia, right? Your first search term should be Russia. Your modifier is 13th century. Your third modifier might be or maybe you want to start with your primary point, which is your new countries and then and then and try not to just develop that. So all the more cool stuff is just into that search. Now, what I do is that a lot of journals will provide a title in English even though the article itself is in a different language. Or they have an English abstract and then the rest of the journal article is in another language. And so that will sometimes get you things in that language. So I like Google Scholar. If you go into Google Scholar, sometimes on the right of the thing you find is a link that's clickable, because a lot of journal articles are now available online for free. Some of them aren't, but the ones that are online for free you can click. Now, what is the journal article you want to do? You don't want to have to read it, you don't know if you want to fling $20 away. So, there's a couple of things you can do. Number one, the SCA is full of people who work at universities. They work at University of Michigan, they work at University of Ohio, they work at University of Illinois, and all universities have libraries. And people who work at those universities have access to those libraries. And so you make sure you have a nice little network of friends, and you say, hey, you still have access to the libraries at OSU, right? And they're like, yeah, I do. I'm like, hey, can you find this journal article for me? Right? Or, ask around your friends. How many of you work at an academic institution? There we go.
The local community college, you get access to their library and education that we have.
If you're an alumni, a lot of colleges have alumni library out there. So there's that possibility there. And then, but I don't. What about my local public library? Well, your local public library will still do something like this.
Local library is connected into our statewide university system.
Right.
Things like that.
Yeah. And I think, interlibrary loans are a lot less expensive for libraries these days than they used to be 20 years ago. Because if you ask for an interlibrary loan of a journal article, they send you a PDF. This library in our system has access to that journal. They pull the PDF, download it, and email it to you. Poof, done. What else do I have in here? Book Scholar, JSTOR. So JSTOR is a really good humanities. They have a lot of humanities journals. It's a good place to start for finding those journal articles, maybe associated with your time working on. And then, of course, WorldCat, which allows you to get all of the libraries in one planet and find one source. I did a piece where I wanted a place to the Indian cookbook, the Mahatma, and I didn't want to buy it because it was over $100. I'm like, but the Art Institute of Chicago, of which I'm a member, happens to have one in their library, and they also have a docu-scanner that you just take pictures and then you send it to yourself. So I use that for free. There are so many possibilities out there. And I will say that compared to when you look back in the past, like I said, I've been a cooking log for 20 years. When I wanted a copy of Scappi, which is the 16th century Italian cookbook I mostly work from, I had to spend $350 to get a facsimile copy of it from Italy. Now you can go on Google Docs and just look at it.
Isn't that
Right.
just chap yet?
Not particularly. It's been my joy for 20 years. It's a fantastic. It's over 1,000 recipes, and most of those recipes and you can make a pork. All of these dishes, a veal. You can also make all those dishes do with pork. And then it gets to turkey, and it's like a turkey breast. You can make all those dishes you do with veal, and I'm like, oh, so any dish that's made of pork can be made of turkey. Got it. That's fun. But it's been well worth it. But now you can get it. And now that book has been translated into English by scholars, so you don't even have to read Italian to use it. Then we get into non-European food. So, non-European food, I would say, it is getting really exciting because we are starting to see more non-European food sources appearing in English. There was recently just one came out of China, the Madame Wu's Kitchen, I think it is. That just got released. Because we know they had it. India, China recorded everything. They had a bureaucracy. They wrote everything down.
They had forms of triplicate in 900 AD.
Right? But it's all in Chinese.
And unfortunately, I don't read Mandarin.
And I do, so if you don't,
I cannot read Mandarin.
Because they wrote everything.
right? They wrote everything down. But what's starting to happen is we are starting to see things come out of those countries in English. But we're still in the beautiful World Wide Web is a thing. Google Translate is a flawed but useful thing.
It's a lot better than it used to be.
It is a lot better than it used
It'll
to be.
give you at least a vague idea.
Right.
It might
Right.
not be 100% accurate,
Um,
but
So, the first thing I would say to start with Google Scholar. Because there's food historians in more than just Europe. Right? Try it in English. If that doesn't work, shove your search term into Google Scholar and then try it again in a different language. Have a look. You never know what's out there. And just for funsies, I'm going to jump around. Like I said, I don't read PowerPoints to you. I don't read handouts. So at the bottom here is backstory. Back to the I have a friend from the East Kingdom, and this year at war, we met up in her camp and we did a Mesoamerican meal. And we had so much fun. We're like, let's do it next year. And we're like, what food? And she's like, I'm thinking about Korean. And we're like, yes. So I got excited. So I went online and I started searching for stuff, right? And I find journal articles where they are comparing recipes across time periods, where journal articles where the royal kitchen staff of the are basically digging into these cookbooks. And then I figure out where to buy the cookbook from, so I now am the proud owner of the earliest Korean cookbook, which was in 1309. It is in Mandarin and Korean, and I mostly translate it. Which is awkward as hell, but I get an idea. Like the journal articles I was pulling, I would run through Google Translate. And there's some definite awkwardness. But I have enough to build a feast. I have journal articles that talk about how menus were put together, what was served, special events. I have the cookbook itself. It's astounding how much I found, and it took me maybe 2 days because I got into a little bit of a oh, this is really cool.
rabbit holes.
Rabbit holes. like, ask the hive mind. And that's the other thing, is there's so many special interest groups out there of people who are into, like, you think, oh, nobody's going to be doing this. Oh, yes, they are. Somebody somewhere is really into this. The SCA is a very broad and diverse place. Caveats. Traditional. This is a traditional dish. Your grandmother's grandmother probably lived less than 100 years ago. Right? Traditional doesn't mean long-standing. You have to be very careful. In some of the very early Korean journals, they make the argument that the Koreans had chili pepper forever because pepper is mentioned in these earlier cookbooks. And it's like, no, it's 100% South American genome.
There's many different types of pepper.
Right. So what actually, like pre-17th century, is going to be Sichuan pepper, or the Japanese the shisho pepper, or black pepper, or long pepper, but not necessarily chili peppers. So you have to be aware of that bias of traditional doesn't necessarily mean. Now, traditional can give you a good start.
Yeah, you have a good way of figuring out where the original origin of food was.
Other than like genomic analysis,
Yeah.
not really, but there's enough people out there been doing genomic analysis.
Okay.
What are you worried concerned about?
Well, just in general.
Yeah. Usually there's some people who do a lot of genomic analysis. We know about the Columbian exchange. Everybody knows the Columbian exchange, right? Other than like all of the diseases that went this way and syphilis that went that way, we also did a whole food exchange. So Turkey has moved from the New World, Mexico, into Spain and Italy, and then,
Turkey.
huh? And Turkey. What I find most fun is our modern turkey that we eat is actually the settlers in North America brought the turkey back from Europe, and it crossbred with wild North American turkeys. And so the turkey we eat today is the Mexican turkey that went to England, was bred by the farmers in England that came back to North America and bred with North American wild turkeys to give our modern eating turkey. Let's talk about confusing, right? What we think of green beans went that way. Squash, zucchinis, all chilies, tomatoes, all came from Americas. Peanuts came from the New World. They were African.
I had no idea.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
Watermelons are African.
Yeah,
And
watermelons,
more
we ate
12th
watermelons in
century
Europe.
China.
Corn went that way much earlier than people think. The Italians were growing corn by the 16th century. So bizarre. You know, anyway, I got off track, I do that. So I get in these rabbit holes, and I think the beauty of research is that you can. Huh? You just get excited. You get so excited. You know, so when we think of polenta, you think of corn, ground corn, right? Which, by the way, fun fact about that, if you eat corn, traditionally, it's nixtamalized. It's treated with lime, and that makes an amino acid available, and a vitamin. If you don't, you get pellagra, which is a vitamin deficiency, because you don't have it in the corn, and it actually binds that vitamin from your diet, and then you get sick. So maize moved to Italy. They started growing maize and using it for the polentas, basically the poor person's porridges, because it produced so much biomass and produced so much calories, far more reliably than the current crops. And then they all had pellagra. By the 17th century, there were massive pellagra outbreaks in northern Italy.
Maybe slightly off track, but then.
Oh, we've been on track all day.
What's the difference then between corn and hominy?
Hominy is nixtamalized corn.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I pronounced it wrong, didn't I?
You were close, actually.
Yeah. I'm bad for Brit.
How do you pronounce it?
Nishtamalized.
Nishtamalized.
So
It's-
what is that?
So that's the stuff that's treated with the lye.
Yes.
Okay,
I
gotcha.
get it now.
It's soaked in alkaline solution, usually lye, but it can also just be like soda ash, and in water, and that will just. I don't remember the exact route that the chemical reaction takes, but it makes certain B vitamins available that aren't otherwise.
Okay.
Thank you.
You can get them from other sources in your diet, but in Mesoamerica, they were often lacking in the rest of their diet.
Okay.
So the other thing I did want to bring up is that if you can find a cookbook in a foreign language that, so we had somebody who actually found a Hungarian cookbook. Was it Hungarian or was it, where is Dracula from? Romania.
Transylvania.
Yeah, the Transylvanian cookbook. So somebody went to Transylvania and they're like, oh, there's this cookbook from Transylvania. And we were like, that's really cool. It was in Hungarian or something. And we're like, crap. And what they did was they put a Kickstarter up. We came up with enough money to translate it into English. Now, it still needed some tweaking, right? But they actually paid a professional translator to translate this book into English and now make it available for you everywhere. Like, you can go find it online. There are so many people in the SCA that will get into this, that there is a thriving cooks community that is like, what, you have a new cookbook? And it's not in English? We need to fix this. You know, so there is so much out there. Even on medievalcooking.com, there is a whole link to translated cookbooks that are available online. You know, people can take them and from it online. Okay, let me have a whack at this and turn it into a foreign language. But you are, as a cook, I think that you should do the research first. Decide what you're cooking. Be honest about how related your food is to the original culture and where you're making great leaps of faith. Let's see, many years ago, I did the coronation feast of Uller and Anneliese II. And they wanted, specifically at the time, Norway, 10th century. So I went to the sagas, I went to the archaeological data, I put together a potential menu, but for each dish I said, here's the thing in the sagas that refers to this type of food. Here's where I'm playing real fast and loose with the foodways because I'm feeding Ohioans, right? I'm feeding people from the Midwest, right? This is a stretch because you'll want a dessert. So I'm making that stretch. We serve basically skyr, stewed plums, and honey for dessert. Okay. Which was still a stretch because there's no record that really, in the 10th century, they even thought of dessert. I mean, they might eat a plum if it's in season, and we know they did based on the middens. Man, they love some plums, but they just eat them whole with the seed, according to the middens.
They're also much smaller.
Yeah. I mean, a small wild plum is not like it. I mean, that's the whole size of the plum, so there's small seeds.
I wanted to ask about that, and maybe I'll wait until you're finished and do Q&A.
I mean, we can do Q&A at any point,
Okay,
really.
so how do you, so when you have a recipe and it calls for, say, 10 carrots,
Right.
but, you know, the carrots that we have today are much larger, but how do you account for the change of size?
Make the recipe, see if it works. If it
Trial
doesn't
and error?
work,
Yeah.
Okay.
go. I mean, so I asked somebody, I said, so what is the difference between the eggs these days and the eggs? And they're like, look, I've raised period chickens. They still give rise to eggs. They're all about the same size. You know.
So maybe you've answered this question before because we came in a little late.
Oh, no, you're good.
But, actually I have two questions. First question, I've been to a lot of feasts, and in Unnamed Kingdom, I felt like we were always being, and I'm not a cook by any stretch of the imagination, I always felt like we were being experimented on. Like it tasted horrible.
See, that's a failure because I think period food is tasty food. Taste buds don't change, right? taste buds have never changed that much. If something tastes foul, it's gonna taste foul. If something tastes like the spice is overwhelming, it's gonna taste like the spice is overwhelming. There is a cultural aspect to that. That, you know, there's certain tastes you're acclimated to and certain tastes you're not acclimated to, certain foods you're acclimated to that you're not. I mean, the looks I get when I go and eat menudo in Mexico are hysterical. They're like, what is the white woman doing here eating tripe?
Right, yeah, I
Right.
mean, I grew up with it, and I still like,
I grew up with it and I love it.
So do
It's
you
all
try
right.
to, and my question is, do you try to make it tasty, even though
Absolutely.
the period,
Absolutely.
the period stuff?
That is where that honesty with your audience has to come in,
Okay.
right? The recipe called for this, based on our preferences.
Okay.
I mean, when I make a meal, I'm always thinking, okay, remember, at the end of the day, I'm feeding a bunch of Midwesterners.
Yeah.
Yep.
Less
I
organ
think-
meat.
Yeah, no organ meat.
No organ meat.
Or organ meats in a small dish as a side dish just for people with, you know, experimental. I went to a feast once where literally they served, you know, 3 courses, and with every course something unusual came out. An organ meat, there was a liver pate in the first course, there was some squid in the second course, there was something in the third course.
I don't even sound like
I know.
We've come a long way in
We've come a
Midwestern
long way,
America in the
yeah.
past 20 years.
We really have.
I mean, I'm from along the Mississippi River, and honestly, 20 years ago, where I lived, I got
yeah.
but
But you don't have to use
No.
yeah, and that's another thing is, other than
So anyway, you have my guidelines from this years ago, and then Q&A, whatever you want, ask me, yell at me, for 10 to 15 more minutes.
I have 2 questions, but one is probably more relevant to after this than the other. You're talking about using Google Translate to sort of scan, to get a gist of it. Is it decent with things that might have been written in a different script than language users now?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but I figured I'd
It's
check.
not even very good. So when I went to Japan, we used printed kanji, not a problem. With the special of the day, right, on the board, handwritten by somebody, we ordered a dish called a shrimp pants. According to Google. Right? We basically just said, can we have that thing, please? Right? Because we couldn't pronounce it. It turned out to be shrimp toast, and it became our code word for, we have no idea what this is, we're going to order it anyway, so it's shrimp pants. Shrimp pants is then me and my friend's code word for, let's just shove it in our face anyway. So it is not very good at that. It's not very good at handwritten, it's not very good at, like, non-standard, modern terminology.
Right, because I thought of it because you were talking about old Korean cookbooks,
Yeah.
like a lot of old Korean texts would have been written in Chinese characters.
Yes, yes, which is why the book I have is I should have brought it actually, because in the back, it's the original handwritten Chinese, and then in the front portion, they have printed Chinese kanji, and then they've translated into Hangul, right? So it has both, and so Google Translate is quite decent at that printed stuff. Really terrible with the calligraphy.
Or like how Ottoman Turkish is written in a modified Arabic script
yeah.
instead of
Right.
because yeah, like I'll see stuff that's it's digitized and it's printed.
Right.
Well, it's on screen, but
Yeah.
it's printed, but it's still Arabic script, but it's not pronounced the same way.
Right. Right. Yeah. So that's where I mean, and I would say too, like with this little Korean project, we actually have at this point 2 native Korean speakers that are going to help me when I'm like, what is this? And I can literally say, like, Google says this. I really would like your help. And like, you read this and then it's actually because I'm like I don't do something like China. like, no, my husband's gonna go, you know, dry him and stuff. So we're gonna use something gray. Because humans are better. I do 16th century Italian. 16th century Italian is not modern Italian. It's entirely different. It's not different. And over time, as a human being, you do that, you know, AI learning program. You get used to recognizing that in the way things are spelled, but you know what they are. And computers not so dumb.
Computers are great at gathering and organizing information and less great at actually interpreting it and making decisions on it,
Correct.
about it.
Correct. Anything else?
With
Go.
Google Translate, sometimes if you put it in a whole sentence, it'll give you one thing. If you then check partial phrases from that, it'll translate it differently, so you'll sometimes get things that make a lot more sense.
Yeah. I mean, translating some of this Korean, I got like, something horses. And I'm like, pretty sure there's not horses in this recipe. It's probably some spice or ingredient that is getting mistranslated in some weird way. Huh? It was, no, I mean, this was a recipe for noodles, right? I'm pretty, it was not horses. Like, dip your noodles into horses.
I don't,
Or horse dung. No, it was horse dung. I'm like,
You need lamb's ear for this. You do not go out and cut the ears off a lamb. It's an herb.
Right.
right, yeah.
So the whole leap of faith thing, in the feast that I'm planning, I'm doing a tour of the Balkans, and of course, a lot of the sources that I found, they're those traditional cookbooks.
Right.
But I am sorting through them and using some intuitive thinking. Oh, that one calls for tomatoes. That's out.
Right.
Is that okay?
Yeah. I mean, as long as from my point of view, as long as you are absolutely honest with your audience about the decisions you've made, and when you put your feast booklet out there, you're also honest with the decisions you've made and why you've made those decisions.
Yeah.
Right? I think one of the biggest things is that oven use is rare. Ovens are expensive in terms of both fuel and space. For most of like pre-16th century, very few people had an oven. If you needed something baked, you took it to the bake shop. You took it to the baker, and he would cook it for you, or people put stuff in. I mean, they still do this in the Middle East. You know, you put everything in a pot and you give it to somebody who's got an oven, and it gets put in the oven, and then it cooks slowly overnight in the falling heat, and you take it out later. Ovens are rare. Stewing is common. You know,
You'd have
That
communal ovens.
oven rarity.
I say you'd have communal ovens.
or you'd have communal ovens. Yeah.
Well, the rarity of ovens is the reason that Suleiman the Magnificent developed laws regarding the purity of bread.
Right.
Because everybody was, or not everybody, but the majority were buying their bread.
Yeah.
And he wanted to make sure that you were actually getting the weight and the content that you were paying for.
Right. And I think this is I mean, in the same environment, in England, they had the bread loaves in England in the 70s. And I think that's something that, you know, you do your research, you make your adjustments as necessary to fit your event, to fit your meal, to fit your audience. But I think if you're honest about it, that's helpful. I mean, the way I generally do feasts is, I mean, if you go to my website, you'll find like feast menus, and it will always have like, why is it this way? Here's the original menu. Here's my interpretation of it. Because I'm upfront and honest about where that information is coming from. What changes am I making to meet the needs of the event staff and the people who are eating? Because if you're not doing that, you fail anyway. Right? Your food should be delicious.
So along with the people who are eating, is it reasonable to make accommodations for common food allergies and
Absolutely.
and dietary choices? I always try to make sure that I provide a vegan option.
If you, when I did Helewyse's coronation feast, I identified and made alternatives for gluten, dairy, you know, nuts, so that people can make choices. And is rice pudding cooked with oat milk? Do you think? Absolutely not. But it now gives those people the opportunity to eat something they couldn't always eat.
I think one of the highest compliments that I got was that, Sasha paid for these last year, because I made sure that I had vegan options, dairy-free options.
Right.
If there were nuts,
The other thing,
They were served
the
on
other
the
thing
side,
you
that
need to
kind of
make
thing.
accommodations for if you are doing a feast is simple logistics. I don't have 200 people in my kitchen, right? I don't have the kitchen staff. So I'm gonna make stuff in advance. I'm gonna change the menu so that there's maybe a few less dishes than there would have been in period. It's all a compromise. But I don't think we should be compromising. From my point of view and my soapbox is start with research and show me the research when I sit down for your feast. It really disappoints me. At the very minimum, when you sit down for a feast, you should have a menu with ingredients listed so that people who sit down know how to plan for the food they eat. The minimum. That is the bare minimum. I sat at a feast and there was nothing on the table, there was something on the wall. Eventually, I managed to figure out that 3 out of the 4 dishes served in one course all had onions in them. And onions is a problem for some people. And the only way I could figure that out was to get my server to go get this big list of recipes that I then had to dig through to see which recipe listed onions. And you're missing the point when that happens. You're making it hard for people to avoid foods that they are allergic to or that they are avoiding for other reasons. I'm not allergic to onions. If I eat a lot of onions, I'm just not pleasant to be around. It's like a lactose thing. I don't enjoy it. Nobody else enjoys it. People talks. Right, but I would like to know that I'm not eating that many onions. You know. So absolutely, it is all compromising, but I don't compromise on the research. Don't compromise on the research, and be honest about when you're making compromises.
Once you know what the ideal would look like, then you can make choices
Right.
instead of having them already made for you because you didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah, and you mean we're going to make choices like, there's another hill I want to die on. I am so tired of people saying, well, feast should be $12. I'm like, feast was $12 20 years ago. I don't know if you've been grocery shopping recently.
Right.
The prices have gone up over
yeah,
the year.
I'm sorry, but eggs are
Expensive.
not 50 cents a dozen anymore.
Right?
You'll spend $12 at McDonald's.
Right.
We're
Easily.
gonna spend more than $12 at
$20
McDonald's.
at McDonald's.
Right. And people are like, I'm so tired of Feast just serving pork loin and chicken thighs. I'm like, you've been grocery shopping? It's pork loin and chicken thighs because that's what we can afford because you set the budget at 12. It should be 15 or 20 if we're going to be honest.
At least.
At least.
I
If
think
you
we
want-
bumped up to 15.
If you want 20.
Ooh, good job.
Yeah.
It should be
Dark-
20.
dark
You're
river.
getting a 3-course feast.
Oh, I do more than that.
With I never serve more than 2 pounds of food because then your food waste goes sky high.
Yeah.
That is also where people fail, is that planning, which is a completely separate soapbox of making sure that you meet human digestive system capabilities. If you're throwing away a lot of food, then you're not using your time and your resources effectively. Smaller portions are perfectly fine. If you're going to serve 20 dishes, and let's be honest, I'm a fancy bitch. I go to tasting menus where they're serving like 7 and 8 courses. They will buy 2 bites. Because a human stomach, and like, oh, I want lots of food, I want it to be abundant. I want lots of food to go in the garbage. If you're taking out giant heavy bags of garbage at the end of your feast, then you have failed to plan the amount that is appropriate to eat.
How do you find that sweet spot? Because there's a lot of
Spreadsheet.
people in the SCA who have
Spreadsheet.
big appetites.
I spreadsheet.
It'll even out between the ones who have the big appetites and the ones who,
It
Look
amortizes.
at the capacity of the human stomach.
Yep.
You'll get a
Because
range.
honestly, human stomach, at the most.
It can hold up to 2 pounds of food, and that's on the, now
Right.
you're
Your typical recipe is gonna call for anywhere between 1/4 to 1/2 pound of meat per person. divide that.
By the number
By-
of meats you're serving.
Yeah, so like if it's calling for a 1/4 pound of meat per person, you're gonna wanna serve your feasters half to a 1/4 of that, because you're gonna have other,
Things.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I use Excel and I figure it for the entire feast. Here's how much starch I want. Here's how much protein I want. Here's how much vegetables I want. And the amount of vegetables is astonishing. Green salad, 1/4 to a 1/2 ounce per person, and you will still be throwing salad away. A
Right.
vegetable, 1/2 ounce to an ounce. A rice, 1/2 ounce to an ounce raw. Cooked, it's more, but you know. Rice, thank God, is cheap. It's the meats and the expensive vegetables that, you know, I would rather spend more money on high quality meat and serve less of it than serve a pound of pork loin to everybody. But that's my personal thing. Hey, welcome to Wheezy. Let's watch all the hills she's willing to die on. This pretty much most of my class is weird. But you do have some great resources here, along with my ranting. Any other questions? No?
I had a question for you, but
Yes.
it's one that's less relevant to the rest of the group, so I wanted to save it.
Okay.
You mentioned that you've done a Mesoamerican feast. I wanted to talk to you about some of the sources you used for it.
I did not. I cooked with a friend.
Okay.
And we did dinner. We did like a little in-camp
Oh,
lunch.
well.
But yeah, absolutely, I'll put you in touch with her. And I also still have the copy of the Mesoamerican feast that was served in Ayrton many years ago. Mr. Gianetta. But
And Mistress Cassett.
I have a copy of the handout.
Okay.
I can get that to you.
Also, I can get Gianetta to send you the research.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can I give you my,
Absolutely.
email?
Give it to her and she'll give it to me.
Absolutely. I'm going to put it in a note so I remember what the hell I'm doing.
Okay.
She'll edit the end of that out. Keep notes. Plus text. Okay. Put your name and email in there, and I will get you in touch with. Okay. Was that entertaining at least?
American.
I'm always entertaining.
Not in America.
Oh, yeah.
And
Not only-
honestly, I'm more than happy to help people too. Like, if I decide it's interesting and I'll rabbit hole, I'll sit at my desk in my office at work at the college and just start rabbit holing like crazy.
And then she'll send you a text every minute.
Like, here's my Google Doc I put together. Here's my Google Doc I put together.
The most fun feast I ever did
No worries.
was the one that the theme was the preservation of youth.
Oh, yes, that was like for Megan's 40 year.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too, get it online. Like, I hate looking at a website, like, for an event, and there's not even a, like, dinner, feast will be served, okay? Like,
That's
like,
not enough to plan by.
On the table, at least put the menu with the ingredients.
yeah, at least that. What I did for Coronation Piece was on the back, I had a QR code that linked to all my research and the online version.
Oh, you're so.
I mean, sometimes we're hard pressed to have like an event schedule more than 3 days before the event.
We're not going to go into that. And my ADHD. No, my obsessive compulsive behavior. We once came up with a question. We said, are all scientists obsessive? And that's what makes them good scientists? Or do all scientists end up being obsessive? Because if you're doing I was a bench scientist for many years. You cannot do that without being detail oriented and very, very methodical.
Yeah.
Well, not well anyway.